high.
Now, whatever the nature of the show, it's certainly a good show China always puts on. Let's discuss the military and the naval development in China with Ridzwan Rahmat. He's a principal defense analyst with Jane's, a UK-based defense publication and consultancy based here in Singapore. Ridzwan, this great show that China is putting on display today in Qingdao, many distinguished guests from around the region. Where is the interest in all this naval display particularly coming from?
Well, the fleet review that they are conducting today is actually a very old naval tradition. Whenever there is an anniversary to be celebrated, navies typically invite their allies and partners to show off their latest military hardware. And as a show to the world, these are my friends. For example, Singapore, on the occasion of our own Navy anniversary, we had our own similar fleet review. So I think rather than seeing it as a flexing of muscle of its military hardware, I would argue that it's also a show of the diplomatic, naval diplomacy that China has around the world.
Even so, what is China's purpose in creating such powerful naval assets? There are some nuclear submarines, for instance, for the first time. What are these particular assets capable of?
Yeah, I think China is a country that has realized that it's the ability of its naval might will tie in very closely with the destiny of its country. And during the Qing dynasty, we saw the Chinese Navy went into decline. And so in parallel was the country's economy and social conditions also. So I think what China is trying to achieve for the next few decades is that it's going to build up its military might, particularly its naval power, to be comparable to that of such as the US Navy. And this, I think, it will be in line with its overall economic and development objectives.
Right. Ridzwan, when you look at China's entire fleet of naval assets, is there any region in the world you would say is still an open frontier for China then?
Well, the Chinese have always maintained the need to defend their sea lines of communications, and that includes vital areas where its trade flows through. Okay, the Chinese Navy 20 years ago was just a navy that was capable of brown water defense or offshore defense, but today it's transitioning towards a blue water force, and that by definition is a force that can project and sustain its naval assets anywhere in the world. So I don't think that there is any frontier, so to speak, because China is having ambitions that is global in nature. If you were to look at what's been happening in the past 2 years, they established their first naval base, offshore naval base in Djibouti, Africa. So that's one of the hallmarks of a country with wider global ambitions.
Well, they've certainly made their presence felt in the Antarctic as well, although there are experts that tell us the Atlantic is still untouched territory for China. It sounds like that is going well hand in hand with the Belt and Road Initiative. What are some of the signals we've been tracking, though, from the European powers, the NATO powers?
Yeah, I think the European countries are taking notice of the ambitions that have been exhibited by China. I think they have noticed the frequent deployments of Chinese naval vessels in the Indian Ocean, in the Mediterranean, and the drills that it has been conducting with Russia in the Black Sea, which are no mean feats, considering that these are very far away places where you can't just deploy a warship. You need to sustain the logistics plan and link around it also. I think the European powers are taking notice, and they are coming into China's backyard also. I mean, you look at the statement from the UK's Royal Navy saying that they will deploy their aircraft carrier into this region. So I think as a way to, as we move forward, we will be seeing a lot more naval powers deploying their assets into each other's domain of influence.
Not so long ago, China was bringing out its very first aircraft carrier, the Liaoning, and there were many quiet coughs of bemusement, probably, from European quarters. Is the feeling now changing with the development in their portfolio, with their nuclear submarines, their destroyers even? Where is China at in its phase of proper development?
Yeah, China's first aircraft carrier is probably not yet operational. As I understand it, it's being used as a training platform rather than an actual combatant. But there are plans to introduce more ships that are going to be operational in the future. Still a few years away. To have an aircraft carrier is just one ship. to actually operationalize it, you need other assets like an operational fighter aircraft, for example. That's not very clear yet if China has it. So they are still developing that. I don't think it will be something that we'll see in the next 10 years. But after 10 years, you never know what are the operational capabilities that might come online.
How far away would you right now gauge China's capacity to have a fully fledged and armed naval force?
I think it depends on who they will be up against. I know we have a lot of claimants of overlapping maritime territorial claims with China that are not anywhere near China's might. So I think if a conflict were to happen between China and a country like that, I think it will be over quite swiftly. But China's adversaries are not just the small states. We still have Japan, the United States, and Korea. And I think if you were to compare the forces of China versus those of the developed countries, I think you'll either have a stalemate or a situation whereby China will find itself not being able to match up with that of its adversaries.
Well, in the meantime, we get to enjoy all these gadgets. Ridzwan, thank you so much for your analysis with us today. Ridzwan Rahmat, the Principal Defense Analyst with Janes here in Singapore.